Okay. That appears to be dear little me. Okay. You getting me, little one? We're verifying transmission is occurring. Hello, little one. Through the miracle of modern electronics, I can talk to you across the room.
Yeah.
Okay. So, howdy, folks. I'm Keith Boeing. That's Pixel. And this is Hard Rock University Live Edition. So, I'm not sure if it's announced anything. How many people are watching, little one, and where do I see that?
I see 5 watching now, and it's right underneath the words third live stream on your computer screen.
I don't see third live stream on my computer screen. How about that? In some ways, you can see more than me.
Yeah, I'm seeing it from your main channel, that's why.
Okay. Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris and Chris. Anyhow, I think I'll start while more people join in here just with a little quick review of what I've done over the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, had a gentleman come in from out of town. He had an urgent need for a crash course in the basics of microscale hard rock gold mining and extractive metallurgy. And as such, he came over here and we just spent 3 days together, just having a good time, learning how to pan, watching some crushing and grinding and extraction. Went out in the field, saw a small mine, drove over to the big mines down south of here and kind of cruised around those, what you can see, which isn't much right now. Yes, little one?
Laura says he needs that too.
Okay. It can be arranged. You have to get a hold of me, use my email, and I would much rather be teaching people gold mining and paying my bills than working construction and paying my bills. But anyhow, that's the way it is. And so anyhow, we had 3 days there. Then the next few days I spent modifying the concentrator. I tried one modification before he got here, and it seemed to work well, so I modified the next stage the same way. A little bit different, just to try, if you do it identically, you don't see if there's a better way or not. So I made a few little tweaks, and we'll see what happens. Preliminary testing today, pretty good. Then I attacked the impact mill, and good Lord, I left the camcorder out there, I think. The camcorder's not on my desk, is it?
I don't see it.
Oh boy, it's on the workbench. I ought to go get it sometime. But anyhow, so the impact mill, first of all, the rotor was badly worn. Efficiency had dropped terribly. And so I wanted to build a new rotor. And I also wanted to try, instead of a 4-inch thick chamber, a 6-inch wide chamber. So I thought, well, why not? I'll go ahead and use this one. Weld 2-inch strap around it to extend it out, get some longer mount bolts to hold the face on, and then just build the new rotor. I also put replaceable wear plates on the new rotor because not only was the rate of wear pretty bad on the old rotor, even with the hard facing. But when it wears, you can't get the hard facing back out as far as it was before. Yes, little one.
Weeded Tracy says, still working on my small chain mill.
Yep. Go for it. They do work. As I'm trying to do a few other things with this one too. We'll see. For all I know, a chain mill is as good as anything. I don't know yet. But anyhow, so did those modifications, and then I had to do kettle corn this weekend. It's October, and so we have a haunted corn maze thing we do every year. And today I was back at construction. So got to be paying the bills this month. Hot rod's coming by. We're going to see about getting the minor bago up and running again. Need to rebuild the carburetor on the Suburban. So got lots and lots to do this month. About any time, and process some samples if you got some that you need to be done. And aside from that, I know I've got at least one other gentleman that wants me to go take a look at his claim. That's going to be at least a 2-day job, just because of travel time, if nothing else. But I'd rather get the minor bago up and running first.
Well,
Yes.
Adam and Jeff are in here too.
And anyhow, so I say that's my basic plan for the next couple months. December, good chance I'll be selling Christmas trees again. It wasn't too bad last year, made decent money. It was kind of interesting. We'll see what happens. But such is life. So the last you heard was rebuild the carburetor. Not much of any importance since then, Chris. So anyhow,
Say hello to Adam.
hi, Adam.
And Gnome Space is here.
And Gnome Space. Yeah, we got a lot of people. That's good. I'm going to be focusing a lot in the next couple of weeks on some tests on how to see if there's any way I can get that really floaty gold out of the slimes. And part of that is making some more slimes to play with. Anyway, let me adjust this camera. I seem to be a little bit uncentered. Oh, that looks much better to me. But anyhow, I'm going to be doing a test on a number of different techniques. Trying to.
Behind you is still tilted, by the way.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know why it's that, because I'm straight up and down, and yet it looks tilted. I think it's just because you're getting it from an angle. But yeah, this that's a vertical line there, and this is a vertical line here, but they don't look the same. Go figure. Geometry. But anyhow, so that's one of the things. I've got a bunch of Ryan's ore to test, and basically get a better idea of exactly what's going with that, what kind of recoveries, and try and get the slimes to give up the gold. I don't know if the tailings, it's more a matter of liberation or recovery. I suspect liberation in those. Slime should be liberated. And I remember, speak loudly, little ones, so they can hear it.
Chris Georgie says 2 chemical treatments that might be worth playing with: oxalic acid and or weak HF. And Chris Saucier says, yeah, your best bet is first run for testing out recovery.
Okay, so we got hydrofluoric acid, Ouch. That's nasty stuff. And oxalic acid. And well, that's nice, Hardcore 11. That's nice someone sent you a free one. As for winging it, Tracy, I live in Tucson. I don't know how close that is. But if you want to come fix that carb, that'd be fine. It's a Holly dual pumper. Chevy 350. But it's got a leak where it leaks into the manifold. And
they're in Vegas.
And therefore, if you let it sit for a little bit, it tries to flood on you. And if it sits overnight or for a long time, no problem. But it's that intermediate. A short time, not a problem. Long time, not a problem. Intermediate time, you may run out of battery before you finally get it checked to fire. Yes, little one.
Winging it, Tracy is in Vegas, and Chris Georgie says use NAF plus cheap acid. Don't buy HF. And Corey says hello.
Sodium fluoride plus. So what, like hydrofluoric, I presume? I mean, that's probably the cheapest acid is just muriatic. It's easy to get, etc. So sodium fluoride, huh? Well, that's going to be fun to find. I'm sure I can find it. But I'm also thinking of maybe something like clay buster or whatever too. I'm not sure exactly what it is that's suspending stuff, and in Ryan's ore, it may just be small gold because it's not a whole lot. You know, like 20-25% of the gold winds up in the slimes. Yes, little one.
Chris Georgie says HGL or H2SO4, and toothpaste even works.
You put toothpaste in the slimes and mix it into the water, huh? Wow. So, okay. I also did some up north where it seemed like I'm not sure if it's the borax or the sodium, whatever it was. I've got it sitting over there. But it was the TSP equivalent. I also get some TSP and try that, see if that helps break things up.
Jeff Green asks, have you tried hot water infusion for fine gold?
I haven't tried on a processing setup. When I was up north panning the samples at Prospect B, it was pretty cold in the mornings, and so I actually heated some water up to about as hot as I could stand to use it, and I couldn't see any difference in the panning results. But that was far from a definitive test. I want to do some more on that. Dimitri, haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, Dimitri needs help, and Corey has a good point here.
Okay, Dimitri, you got 36 tons of rock coming out of each blast. I presume that once you blast it, you move it, and then you're going to send it into the mill. If you're milling it, it's not that hard at all. They make something called a disc sampler. It's a flat disc that moves very slowly, and you put it somewhere in your process stream, like after the cone crushers, but before the ball mill, to where the stream hits the side of the disc and likes to pile up. And as it turns, there will be a catch container there. And so it'll slowly take a continuous sample of your process flow. Now, if you're not processing it, then it's a lot harder to get a representative sample. But if you're trying to sample the process flow, what you're putting into your mill, that's pretty easy to do. You just got to find a fairly finely crushed product. I say generally just before it goes into the ball mill. If you've got like cone crushers or something, and you're not having to do a lot of water flushing, so it's not slop, but it is, it's a dry, solid, fairly finely crushed, then a disc sampler should work fine. They're low tech, fairly easy to find, I would think. But that's exactly its purpose, to give you a good representative sample. Very small percentage of the process stream actually makes it into the final catch because it's a very slow turning disc. But that'll work great. Yes, little one.
Dimitri says he has to decide first, is it worth to be sent to the milling plant? If the plant is clear, they can always take the samples from the conditioner. So how would you go about taking a bulk sample on 36 tons of crushed stuff?
Okay, first of all, Dimitri, on the rock as you're drilling it, does it look fairly homogeneous, or are there radical changes in the rock? And if there's changes, are they wide veins, little veinlets, things like this? What is it that you're really trying to sample? Because you could also set up a system where you just take your drill and have on one of your shorts. I don't know if you are using a jumbo or jack legs to drill, Dimitri. Either one it would work, but it'd be easier with a jack leg. You have like a 2-foot steel with a slightly larger bit, and you drill like 6 inches of hole, and then you slip in essentially a piece of PVC pipe with a T on it, to where you can slide your next drill bit inside that. It'll fit inside on a longer steel and go past the end of the PVC and continue drilling your hole. And then your chips, will come out, get into that pipe, and then be diverted down where you can have a sample bucket or something. And you could sample each drill hole.
Keep reading the screen bear. Dimitri says they've got breccia with tiny veins.
Okay. Yeah, that's not the easiest thing in the world, but your drill holes, assuming you're running, like a 2-foot pattern or less on your advanced face blast there, the holes themselves go through all that stuff in a fairly geometrically random way if the little veinlets are well distributed, especially if they're more cross than lengthwise, but they're probably not, because you're going along the vein in general in most cases. But you might try that, because it's a very easy way to do it. Just set up, put the sampler in, or actually the helper puts the sampler in.
Dimitri
then
says
the miner
32
drives.
drill holes per 3 by 3 meter section.
Yeah.
And Hardcore says, today I'm finishing making a sluice header box on my 6-inch gold rack.
Yeah, let me know how that dream mat works on the really fine gold. Is to make a collar just larger than the drill, a bit of pipe, T, Yep, exactly. As a matter of fact, probably the best thing to do, Dimitri, is for me to get out my little clipboard here. And let's see. So, here's your face. And you take a larger diameter bit on a short steel and drill a slightly oversized hole for the blasting. It doesn't have to be deep. 6 inches would be adequate. I presume you're not running the explosives all the way out. You're probably coming within about a foot of surface or something. I don't know if you're stemming or not, but assuming either one, it doesn't matter. This size hole here at the very opening doesn't matter. Then you take, there's basically a piece of PVC pipe, and then a T. And you can have pipe over here if you need it or not, whichever. And then pipe coming down there. And then you have a bucket underneath it. So as you insert the next drill steel here and continue your hole like this at the diameter that you want for blasting purposes, for the cartridges you're using and such, then go ahead and as you're drilling, all your cuttings will come out and be diverted down here. You can even put a little, right here, if you want, you can put like a rubber gasket around your drill steel, just a flat piece of rubber that fits the steel pretty tight, and as you're drilling, it gets pushed up the steel, and that will that'll get you a sample from each drill hole, and that I would think that's about as good a sample as you're going to get without having to get really time-consuming and expensive. I suggest trying that and see how well it works. Once you've drilled it, then send it to the plant and run it through your processing and see how well this set of analyses matches up with your bulk sample at the plant, and see if that's a good way of doing it. Yes, little one.
Winged and Tracy points out that Barrick gold seems to process very fine gold, and Chris Saucier points out that he finds the green mat likes 8 degrees for really fine gold. Above 8, it seems to lose a lot.
Okay, well there you go. That's a good thing. In terms of Barrick, yeah, they're leaching.
And Chris Georgie says you don't have to drill an oversized hole if it's a hassle. You can just use some plastic clay right on the face.
I don't know how well that would hold up to the violence of the drilling. You're not core drilling here. You're just percussion drilling, like with a cross bit, and that would it creates a lot of vibration, and you need to be able to do it fast and move to the next hole. You're trying to do production, so you need something that can go fast. And I say it's one of the things is, that's what I used to do on surface, except I used a longer ring steel. Basically, it was a larger steel with a ring bit on it. And I would just drill it down till I hit bedrock, drill into the bedrock until the top of the steel was where I wanted, and then we put a little T box on it and used like I just had a lid with a hole in it. It worked fine. But another thing, Dimitri, you were talking about the efficiency of the blasting itself, and you weren't getting full depth with your blast holes. I'm not sure how good your fragmentation is, but I don't know what explosive you're using. Typically, if you're advancing underground, you're using a fairly small diameter hole. If you're using ammonium nitrate or anything like that, you can easily run into a situation where if you're drilling in hard rock, in order to get what's known as a detonation instead of deflagration, you need to have the explosive column detonate faster than the speed of sound in the surrounding medium, in this case, the rock. Now, it's not hard at all to get rock with sonic velocities in excess of 15,000 feet per second. And that's, right now, you're getting kind of the limits of ANFO, even if you're using a larger diameter hole. So you get to a point where on a small diameter hole with some explosive, especially ANFO, if you're in a hard rock, you don't go supersonic. And if you don't go supersonic, you don't shatter the rock nearly as well. If you can change from a subsonic to supersonic, you can probably cut your explosives in half and get better fragmentation. So I'm not sure exactly what explosives you're using, but if it's just like a bulk ANFO, that could be an issue.
you're going to have to read the screen for a few minutes there. I
Okay.
got all about.
He was drilling, I think it was 20% past, something like that, and pulling like 12-foot holes for a 10-foot shot, and that is quite a bit of over drill. Usually more like 10% over drill, but he didn't specifically mention the degree of fragmentation either, Chris. So I'm not sure how good a fragmentation they're getting too. If you're getting chunky rock and it's not breaking as deep as you want and stuff, that's a good indication you're either not using enough explosives, in which case you need to go to either a larger diameter hole or a tighter pattern, or you don't have enough velocity, in which case you may have to go from like ANFO to a Class A or something like that. And it's one of those things you have to take a look and see what you've got, try a few things, but if it's hard rock and you're using ANFO, that can easily be the problem. So take a look at that, Dimitri. Yeah, for a 1.8 meter bar, the average advance is 1.5 meter. Yeah, so we're losing a foot out of, let's see, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's a little bit light. Yeah, Chris is right. You got to make sure you have a good burn. That very first shot in the middle, you really have to break that and blow that out to get expansion. Sealing voids in a drill hole with quickset or something, only if you had really fragmented rock. Yeah, that's not usually a problem, because if you have that kind of fragmented rock, unless the fragments are really hard, it'll generally loosen up pretty easily. But yeah, cracks in the host rock. The other thing the cracks do, the shock wave is basically sound. And if you have a change in density, it'll tend to reflect. And that's how they do like a sonogram on your body and stuff. It's measuring densities. Fish in the ocean, you got fish finder. It's actually sensing their fish bladders, the air bladders in there, where it goes from water density to a much lower density. And that creates an interface which reflects sound waves. Crack does the same thing. If you have a really solid rock, you can do something called pre-shearing. It wouldn't be what you would want, Dimitri, but if you go down a highway cut, you see a whole series of half a hole, 2 feet apart. What they did there was they drilled a bunch of small diameter holes close together. They loaded them loosely. I mean, typically, like they drill an 1.5-inch hole and put a 1-inch tube of pre-shear explosive down there, and they set them off instantaneously. And there's no delays between those holes. And it sets up a pattern of stresses in the rock that just cracks it along that line. Once you've got that crack, then as the production blast comes back, that crack really attenuates the shock wave. Right there, let's say you've got a shock wave of 50 bar, it hits that and it's more like 10 bar. Now, I mean, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but it really reflects that wave back out instead of allowing that energy to go back through the cracks. So yeah, if you've got badly fragmented rock, especially if it's voids, as opposed to just cracks that were then filled with material, that could be causing poor fragmentation because it gets to the crack, stops, and man, it may just be something that the easiest way to do is just use a little extra explosives, drill a little deeper, and eat it. You know, there may not be a simple, cheap solution to that problem.
Yeah, his explosive is ANFO.
Yeah. ANFO, it also has a lot of gas volume compared to Class A.
He asked a second question
Okay.
down below there if you want to read it.
Yeah.
And his 3x3 section is 32 drill holes.
If you have enough burn, you might be able to get by with it. I've seen 10-foot deep blasts, but not much more than that. 3x3, you're looking at 12x12. You might be able to get by with that because 2 meters, yeah, that's a 2.4 meter bar. Could that be 6-7 feet?
8
Yeah.
feet or so. 7.5 feet.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Just make sure you get a good burn. Okay, make sure that center burn gets fragmented and kicked out, so you got some place for stuff to break too. Yeah, and that's important. What kind is the layout of the pattern? What's the layout of the burn? Is it a V burn? Is it, whatever? Yes, little one?
Corey commented that he actually has road cuts in his area that show exactly what you were talking about.
Absolutely. It's a little more expensive to do pre-shearing, but if you've got good solid rock, you move a lot less rock when you're done and you leave a much cleaner, stronger wall. So pre-shearing works great, but you have to have good, solid rock without much in the way of cracks. Now, as I was saying, Dimitri, the difference between ANFO and Class A, ANFO has a lot more gas volume, and Class A has a higher velocity. So think of it as a hit versus a shove. Okay, the ANFO has a lot of shove to it, but it doesn't necessarily have that sharp hit to it like a hammer would. You could take a 4x4 and have, and use it like a battering ram, and you can deliver a lot of energy. If you had like a 12-foot long 4x4 with 4 guys smacking into it, you probably have more energy than you would with a 10-pound sledgehammer. But if you're trying to bust through rock, the wood isn't going to do it because it's not a sharp enough hit and it's not a hard enough material. So if you have an explosive supplier that gives you tech support, you might ask them, they may say, well, why don't you try this product? And it may do such a superior job that even though it's more expensive, it may be worth it. There are times when that happens. Okay. And yeah, not only that, Chris, the high velocity, low gas volume, but you usually leave a gap between the explosive and the hole wall. Unlike normally, you're ramming it in or something, but in pre-shear they make like 100-foot long rolls of like 1-inch explosive, and you just roll it out, run it down the hole, and hang it there in like an 1.5-inch hole so that it doesn't couple as vigorously. And that's one of those things. And Chris may be right. I'd say with your particular situation there, Dimitri, say talk to your explosive supplier, assuming you have one. You don't just buy ammonium nitrate and mix it yourself and stuff. I mean, ammonium And that's another question. Are you buying explosive grade ammonium nitrate prill? I presume you are. And if you're not using an explosive grade prill, well, that's a serious issue there. You can't use fertilizer grade. You have to have air gap in it. It has to be kind of porous and spongy for things to work. I presume you're getting an explosive grade from some kind of a supplier. Talk to that supplier and ask them if they've got free tech support, or someone can come out and take a look at your situation, see if they've got another product that may work better. And if you can spread your drill pattern, you have, better overbreak. I mean, if you're not having to over drill nearly as much, you're getting better fragmentation, it'll be worth it to go to a higher priced explosive if it works better. Getting the right match of explosive, delay sequence, and things like that can just make an enormous difference. I know a particular situation where a supplier told me that there was a big mine. I think it was a coal mine, if I recall right, and they were blasting the overburden. And they were drilling like 6-inch holes, and they wanted to avoid, I forget exactly what they were trying to avoid, but basically they only wanted so much powder per cubic yard. And so the way they were doing it was they would drill a hole and they'd put like a 5-foot charge down there, and then put stemming in and a new primer and another 5-foot charge, and like that. It's called deck blasting. And the explosive supplier said, well, I think you need to just increase your drill pattern some so you don't do that. And they were trying to get better fragmentation by kind of distributing the explosives better through the rock mass. The problem with that is that a 6-inch hole with ANFO, and you're only using like a 1-pound booster on your blasting cap, it never gets up to steady state velocity. It barely starts to really burn, and then it runs out of room. If you use like a 1-pound booster in a 6-inch hole with ANFO, it takes a couple feet for the ANFO to really start building up the pressure and do its thing. Think of it as an engine that takes a little time to come up to speed. Well, if your starter spun it at 1200 RPM, it wouldn't take long to come up to speed. So you'd use a bigger booster. But they weren't doing that. And so they spread the pattern out. They did what you asked. When they were ready to blast, he says, you sure you want to leave that shovel sitting that close? And they're like, well, why not? It never goes. He said, why don't we try, we're doing something new. Let's give it a shot to get a little extra safety. And he said, when he pushed the button on that blast, the guy's jaw literally dropped, because, it just went, whoom! And he's like, holy crap, what the hell? It's like, well, if you give it time to come up to speed and use the right size boosters, you'll get a lot better use of the energy in that ANFO.
Now, this is sort of a question that Corey asked here. If you want to for your thread.
I'm looking at this one with the finer granules.
Yes.
Finer powder again. Typically, Corey, it's not a powder. It's what they call a prill with ammonium nitrate. It's a porous granule, and it would give kind of the same effect. But when they actually make the little teeny pellets, they're porous, and so there's lots of void space in there for the diesel fuel to get into and stuff, and it works well. And I agree, Chris. He may save money in every other part of the operation, even if the explosives cost more, especially if you can spread your drill pattern a little bit. If the more efficient explosive, allows you to either spread your drill pattern and go to a slightly smaller hole where your drill can advance faster, your productivity can potentially go up pretty substantially. Let's see. Chris, they were just trying to get better fragmentation by spreading the explosives more evenly through the rock. That was the whole concept. If we drill holes on a tighter pattern and deck load it, we'll get the same loading factor, but with more explosives. No spot in the rock is as far from the explosive column as they were if we just drilled a whole hole. But yeah, that was tedious, expensive as hell, extra drilling, extra boosters, god awful, time consuming to load. Yeah, it was just a total cluster. And just doing it the simple way gave much better results. Yeah. Well, the fuel oil, I don't know how it carries the shockwave, but it's also the fuel compared to the ammonium nitrate oxidizer. And yeah, Chris, you're right. Choose the right explosive, the right pattern, the right delay sequence up front. That would be great. The problem is, a lot of times you have someone who's done something somewhere else and is moving in a new situation and doesn't know the theory very well. And rather than ask around and get better versed on the theory, they just try what they did. And when they tried what they did, it didn't work. So they tried something else that seems to make sense. Doesn't necessarily work. There are certain things. I'm going to throw this story out there for everyone, and you guys can just comment on, when do you guys see the holy crap moment? Okay. Again, this was from an explosive supplier. He said that, first of all, you've got salespeople and you've got tech support, and the two are not the same. So this salesman, from an explosives company, was making the rounds. I think it was up in Wyoming, not sure. But anyhow, it was someplace up north like that. And they were using a dynamite at this particular mine, and they'd given them a new, it was the same brand, but their newer formulation of dynamite or whatever. And the salesman's coming by and says, "How's that new stuff working out for you?" And the guy said, "That seems to be working pretty good." He said, "But I'm not sure why, but there's this stuff dripping out of some of the cases, It's not sure what it is. It's like leaking something." So the salesperson goes and takes a vial. I don't know, he got it from the lab there, had it with him, and he collects some of this liquid.
Chris just said, "What the fuck?"
Uh-huh.
Run like hell.
And so he puts it in the vial, puts it in his pocket. And he says, "Well, I'll tell you what, when the truck comes by on Friday, I'll just have him replace that stuff for free. I'm not sure what's going on either, but we'll just replace it and then we won't worry about it." So Friday morning, he gets to the lab and he tells the tech, says, "What is this stuff?" And the lab guy goes, "I don't know. Where did you get it?" And he says, it was leaking out of that, product A. And the guy goes, "Don't move. Okay, now, I am going to take the vial from you, but do not let go of the vial until I specifically tell you to let go of the vial." He reaches out and he says, "Okay, I have the vial now. Let go of the vial." And so he puts it in an ice water bath and everything. He says, "What's the situation?" He says, "Well, it's leaking out." And he says, "So I told him I'd replace it and everything." "You'd replace it?" "Yeah, our truck would just pick up the old stuff and give him some new stuff." He goes, "Where is that truck?" I said, "I don't know, should be there around now." He says, "Get a hold of them now." So get a hold of them. "They said it left there about an hour ago. Where's it going?" "State police?" "Yeah. there's this truck on this highway, should be about this location, wherever the hell it is. You stop that truck and you clear an area for 1,000 feet in all directions and give us a call. Because as some of you guys have figured out, it was leaking nitroglycerin. If you freeze and thaw dynamite, it can actually start dripping pure nitroglycerin. What makes it a dynamite is it uses nitroglycerin either as a sensitizer or as the main explosive charge. Luckily, with all, God protects fools and children here.
Adam says, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Corey says that's scary, and Stephen B says sounds like an OSHA safety video waiting to happen.
Yeah, no, it's a fatalgram waiting to happen. But anyhow, so luckily they caught the truck. It was in the middle of nowhere, and they just shut down the highway, and the techs went out and they carefully moved the stuff. It not only had, the cases of bad dynamite on it, but this is an explosive truck hauling explosives to various customers. Oh my God. So yeah, moral of the story is, if you don't know anything about the explosives enough to know exactly what you're doing, it's like a gun. If you don't know enough to know if that gun's safe or not, don't touch it. If you see anything that looks like an explosive or unexploded military ordnance, a shell, this, that, and the other, if it isn't painted blue with the words inert on it, you should assume it's possibly live, and very bad things can happen.
Chris Georgie says, how the hell is the driver not trained to recognize the immense hazard? And Adam Anderson says, whose idea was it to freeze the TNT in the first place?
Well, when you're in like Wyoming, it gets cold, and the magazine, can get below freezing. It doesn't necessarily even have to freeze, just severe temperature changes. As to why they wouldn't train properly, I don't know. This is the real world. You have NASA administrators who launch space shuttles when the head engineer from the company that makes the engines is yelling at them to not push the start button.
Idaho Rogers points out that all guns are safe till in the hands of an idiot.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's why the NRA actually had a safety program for kids that they, for school, is basically stop, don't touch, leave the area, get an adult. And that basically was the basic rules for a little kid. If you see a gun, this is what you do, and it'll keep you safe. Yep.
The Eddie Eagle program.
Yep, Eddie Eagle. But anyhow, yeah, one time I had a mine. It was down by Arivaca. When I rappelled down in there, there was some undetonated explosives. There was some det cords, about a dozen primers, fuse type primers, and I think it was 5 sticks of Amagel 2, which is a dynamite. It's an ammoniated dynamite. Most of the energy comes from ammonium nitrate, but it's sensitized into a class A with nitroglycerin. Luckily, the manufacturer is in Benson, about 30 miles away from here. I called them, got a hold of tech support, and because it was an area that could not be accidentally accessed by anyone, we set up an appointment in a month or so where he could meet me at the mine and the Forest Service would be out there, and we'd safely dispose of it because he could examine it, determine what condition it was in, and from there decide whether to just take it to the surface and burn it or try and detonate it in place or whatever. Yes, little one.
Chris Saucier asks, how long would old cases of dynamite take to go inert sitting in an old mine, assuming it's a dry mine?
I have no idea, but I know it can be a long time. In this case, it was 5 sticks, and they had essentially gone inert, probably in 30 years. But the more stuff you have packed together, the less oxygen's going to get to it, the less degradation is going to occur, the more chance of nitroglycerin pooling. Say rule of thumb is, if it's an explosive and you don't know it's safe, it's not safe. Get help. What?
Corey says gunsmithing is actually what I'm trained for. Firearms design and ballistics, internal, external, and terminal.
Well, good. Good for you. I'm sure you've seen some pretty crazy stuff with guns there, Corey.
And Adam asked, if you stored TNT in the vacuum, would it still melt under freezing?
Well, TNT is different from dynamite. TNT is trinitrotoluene, which is a crystalline solid at room temperature. TNT is a combination of products. Nitroglycerin is a liquid. It's absorbed into the matrix. The original TNT, the original dynamite was nitroglycerin absorbed into diatomaceous earth. And that stabilizes it for some weird reason. That's what Alfred Nobel made a lot of his money with. And then they invented smokeless powders and stuff like that. And then he felt really guilty. So for the wars he helped facilitate, and that's why he came up with the prizes. But TNT is a different situation. It is a solid. You will typically see it cast into little cardboard tubes. They have molten TNT and pour it into the cardboard tubes, and there will be a couple holes in it, one for the detonator and one for the wires and this and that and the other. And they're very easy to handle, very useful, a little more expensive than dynamite. And the liquid molten TNT is really tricky stuff, which is why the place where they do that, where they actually make the cast boosters, is usually all done by remote control and not near anything else, because those facilities blow up on a unfortunately regular basis. So they assume that it's going to go bang sooner or later, because you're just playing, if you'll pardon the pun, you're playing with nitroglycerin. And sooner or later something just gets a little cattywampus and it goes kabloom, and it's time to build another cast booster facility.
They're not fun to play with in their raw state.
And let's see. TNT might vaporize in a vacuum over time, I would think. Really don't know. It is a crystalline solid. It would have a very low vapor pressure.
It would be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
Ask a chemist.
Yeah, either blow it up or burn it. Those are the two ways. In my case, they just burned it. You just put it on. They cut the sticks in half, lengthwise, laid them open, laid them on some newspaper, poured a little diesel fuel on it, lit it. We went to a safe distance and waited for the fire to burn out. You can detonate or you can burn explosives. It all depends on the situation, which way is best and safest. Many explosives will just burn. I've actually talked to soldiers who said you take a small piece of C4 and light it, and you can use it to heat your C rations. But again, once an explosive is hot like that, it'll also tend to be very sensitive to impact. Okay, little one?
Yeah, Idaho said he heard a story from his granddad on how he helped dispose of old case of dynamite in an old mine by burning it with diesel oil.
Yeah, I say it's one of those things that it can maybe be done, but you have to use special precautions to make sure that you're not too close when it goes up.
Corey's got a story here he's telling us. His old man drove truck in the 80s and 90s. He had a nitro situation at the local quarry. He parks his truck when he saw the soggy boxes they put in the 50-foot box trailer.
Well, that was exactly the right thing to do. It's not his job to deal with it. There are also chemical ways of neutralizing the nitroglycerin. In a case like that, you really don't want to blow up the truck, so you can actually put a liquid on the explosives and neutralize the nitroglycerin safely without blowing it up. And blowing it up or burning it is the easiest thing to do if you don't care about blowing up or burning the things around it. Yeah. In most of the towns in Arizona, the bigger cities, there's always a military base somewhere, and they have explosives ordnance people, and that's what they do for a living. So it'll either be the police bomb squad or the explosive ordnance people that'll come out and deal with it. We had a situation here in Tucson where somebody had been stealing explosive ordnance from, I presume, the Air Force. It's an Air Force base here, where we don't know how long, but anyhow, he died, and somebody goes into the house to start cleaning it up, and it's like, holy crap! And I mean, they had to evacuate like 4 blocks in all directions because this guy had hundreds and hundreds of pounds of grenades and mortars and just insane stuff. It's hilarious. I don't know Idaho Rogers baking soda might. All I know is that there is a chemical way of neutralizing it. It's been a long. The only thing I know about dynamite is A, how to use it, and B, don't touch it with my bare skin when it's warm outside because it'll soak through my skin and give me the worst damn headache I've ever had in my life. I would treat the dynamite with more caution in terms of skin contact than I would the cyanide, even though the cyanide is supposed to be able to kill you and the dynamite isn't. But the cyanide never gave me a dynamite headache, and those really hurt. Now, if you ever do get a dynamite headache, 2 things. 1, caffeine. Well, the way you get a dynamite headache, dynamite dilates the blood vessels. The nitroglycerin dilates blood vessels. That's why they give it to you if you have angina. And when they dilate, it hurts your brain. So you want to shrink those blood vessels, and caffeine will shrink the blood vessels. And then you take like ibuprofen or aspirin, something like that, to attack the inflammation. If you do that right away, you can take a horrible 3-day migraine and turn it into only an hour or 2 of moderate unpleasantness. But yes, skin contact with dynamite can get nitroglycerin in your blood real easy. Yes, little one.
Winnie and Tracy says, I'm sure you must have some type of license to buy explosives.
Yes, you do. You have to be a licensed blaster. It's regulated by the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Mine Safety and Health Administration. There's a number of regulatory agencies involved and such. But in order to buy it, you have to have a licensed person, but he may have a number of people working for him. And what exactly is on the test that he takes and which questions he misses but still scores high enough to get the license, you can't tell. Somebody once told me, what do you call the doctor who graduated last in his class? Answer, doctor. Okay. As long as you're good enough to get the little piece of paper, you're a doctor. Doesn't mean you're a good doctor. Let's see, what else? Yes, it is nitro like hard pills, Corey. Absolutely. When they say nitroglycerin tablets, that's exactly what they're talking about. And it will give you a nasty headache.
Adam has a comment for you there, if you want to read it there.
Let's see. Midterms went well on the final stretch, going over geologic maps in the lab this week. I'm sure you use geologic maps in your research, correct? Some, not that much. I'm quite often use more in the way of topographic maps. And the information like the Arizona Department of Mines and Mineral Resources, because if you've actually had a mine looked at by a geologist or a mining engineer, and a lot of them have been, because in a lot of cases, at some point, somebody wants to sell the mine, or they want to sell stock in a mining venture or whatever. So what they need to have is some kind of a report to show to people. Says, this is what I've got. See, this guy with letters after his name says it's really exciting. Well, when they do those reports, they get paid a fair amount of money, and they spend a little bit of time, and you can get a lot of information. Especially Arizona Department of Mines and Mineral Resources used to have field people that go out and make circuits and just talk to people. Every 6 months, stop in. Hey, how's it going? I know a little one-man mine down south of Arivaca, where I've got a couple. I got a whole sheet of things where the guy, had wrote down, showed up here this day. He was here and said this, blah, blah, blah. And then, 4 or 5 lines, and then another line, and then another 4 or 5 lines, different dates, different times he visited. So you can get a lot of information that way. Yes, little one.
Corey points out that certain industries don't need permits because ATF helps them, like farmers who need to remove big stumps or field stones. And on the matter of geologic maps, Chris Georgi points out many are very poorly resolved on a finer scale.
That's true. They're generally large scale maps, not with precision. If you need precision, like where the vein is, what the host rock is, etc., usually you need a mine report, not a geologic map. And ATF helps them and stuff. I would imagine to a great extent the ATF is like, look, if we help these people, then we don't have explosives running around. We keep track of all that stuff, and they don't, so it's one less headache for us, so it's worth it. And yeah, back in the 60s, you'd go down to the hardware store and buy dynamite in some jurisdictions. No big deal. It was no more a big deal than buying ammunition, So, that's where they come up with DuPont spinners for fishing. Back in the old days, you can just buy dynamite, cut a quarter stick, put a cap in it, out in the pond. It was very easy to acquire.
Chris Georgi says there are economic geology maps that are a bit more useful.
Yes, and I've personally found that if you can actually get reports on a particular mine or a mining district or something like that, they can be quite detailed at times.
And Corey says that's pretty much an M80, right?
I think a quarter stick of dynamite is more than an M80. Yeah. But it's just one of those things that times change. You used to be able to go cyanide heap leaching without a whole lot of hassle too.
Stephen B points out that it means also less people searching for YouTube videos on how to mix hardware and farm store fertilizer supplies to blow up stumps.
Yep. There's or get a whole bunch of what do they call that stuff? Tannerite. I imagine if you had enough tannerite, you could blow up a stump too.
Well, we always pulled ours with horses.
Yeah, nowadays I don't know why with the size tractors and stuff they have nowadays, you shouldn't have to blow up stumps. You should be able to just pluck them out. 8 stick, maybe. I'm not sure exactly what an M80 explosive equivalent is. Binary explosives, okay. Now, a binary explosive means you have 2 components that are not explosives until they're mixed together. You still have to have a blasting license, etc. The huge advantage to this is in shipment and storage. When it's being transported, when it's being stored, and all this other stuff, it's not an explosive. So you don't have to have nearly as stringent requirements. If you're going to be mixing it and detonating it, then I believe you still have to have a blaster's license. I also have one of my viewers in Barstow, California, that's working on some stuff. It's kind of like a Sierra blaster, but significantly larger. It's still within the rules as to it's a high pressure gas delivery system as opposed to an explosive. But he says it's pretty effective, you know.
What is tannerite anyway?
I'm not sure exactly what tannerite is. I think aluminum dust is a part of it, but it's used when you see people shooting targets that blow up. That's tannerite, little one. And if you put enough of it together, you can have a serious explosion. There was one doofus trying out for the Darwin Awards that like loaded a lawnmower up with tannerite and shot it at, I don't know, 50 feet or something like that. It just about took his leg off. I'm not sure if they saved the leg, but I mean, it really gruesomely injured this idiot. You know, evolution in action. Well, Chris, the geological maps are interesting. See if you can find some actual information to go along with that. Because when they make a map, somebody has to go out there and gather a lot of data, and then that's combined into the map. And the field notes may be more valuable than the map itself. So see if you can find those field notes. I believe there's going to be somewhere. Yes, little one.
Well, Idaho looks like a good friend. He's got enough reloading powder in his basement to turn a house into a crater. I like this dude.
The yeah, you know, they say certain things can be used for many purposes. And say, I forget the gentleman's name in Barstow. He got a hold of me just recently there, and we may be doing some videos of his techniques in the future here. But yeah, to have something that's not an explosive, you know, basically black powder, I believe, is the major chemical energy source. That's really useful, you know, because it gets rid of a lot of permits.
Ricky there has a question for you.
Yeah. Okay. We got somebody who says, yes, you do have to have a license to use binary explosives. Yep. Okay. And to detonate tannerite, you need 2,200 foot per second initiation shock wave. So a 22 or a shotgun won't do it. Okay.
The M1 Garand would.
Yeah. Now, Unlimited Group says in British Columbia, we have mine file reports on the internet. Now, that can be extremely valuable. That can give you some really abundant and detailed information on a mine. That mine up in Wickenburg we looked at, the owner's representative gave us a file, and in that file, a geologist had actually gone into a mine, which is currently buried. The portal is buried, but he sampled the whole thing. So you could look at the map and see what the samples, you know, and, you know, so many inches wide here, and this was the grade, and blah, 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 the whole thing. So it gave you a tremendous amount of very valuable information. And, you know, describes things such as the mineralogy of the vein, and because they do all these tests, and then they have to compile it into a report. And so, yeah, it's extremely valuable. But things like a geologic map and stuff, not nearly that level of detail.
You got a lot of comments there on the issue.
Okay, and Chris says, yeah, with USGS, if anybody ever applied for a patent on a mining claim, then they have to provide a tremendous amount of information because they're trying to prove it's an economic mine. So they have to provide a lot of information, and there you go. You know, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of information.
Ruby was just checking out the Black Horse mines out by Osceola.
Osceola, is that Florida? I'm not sure. Where is that, Ruby? I'm thinking Osceola is Florida, but I'm not sure.
Stephen says in Ontario they have the Mining Lands Administration System map viewer
Okay.
that links to everything. Chris points out the BLM LR2000
Yeah.
if you can figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate the LR2000. It's so
Ruby
kludgy.
says Nevada, where the biggest gold nugget was found in the state.
Okay. All righty.
There is also in Osceola, Florida.
Yeah. Now that's a good place up. Nevada's got a lot of good mines. Diesel and nitrogen, yeah. Anfo. It works. Oh. Well, Dimitri, I hope we've given you a number of ideas on how to improve your situation there. Hopefully some of them will pan out and you'll be able to get more efficient blasting there. Better fragmentation, lower cost. That would be great.
Chris Saucier says Alaska Mapper is awesome.
Yeah, say different states have a totally different methodology. I mean, California, I imagine, has tried to bury all the information it has on mines because the environmentalists don't want you to know anything. But Alaska is fairly open to the idea of exploitation at this point. And electronic investigations are not my forte. I just personal preference. I'm more hands-on. But there is an enormous amount in some places. Now, when I was up in Montana, they said they have not put it on the internet. You have to go to Butte, Montana, to the university there, and there's an office of like the Montana Bureau of Mines. And they've got it all in hard copy. So you can go set up an appointment and go there and rifle through their files, basically. But you can't do it on the internet. Yeah, I know you're a good researcher, Chris. You're good at hurting electrons. You're good at it.
And county archives, apparently.
Yep. Yeah. No, you have both an aptitude and a proclivity. You like doing the research, I suspect, because you're so darn good at it. You don't get that good if you don't enjoy doing it to the point where you do it a lot and therefore get really good at it. Yeah. And say it's a good way to look for things. Now, the way I use the internet to look for things is I put together a YouTube channel, and then people who have interesting locations get in touch with me and say, "Hey, I've got an interesting location. You want to take a look at this?" And that's how I'm doing it. And it's certainly keeping me busy at this point. I'm having a good time too. Now, if I can just get the equipment running the way I want it to run, then we'll have the whole package and life will be sweet. Yeah, I could tell, Chris. By the way, for those of you who don't know Chris, a couple of years ago we were up in his neck of the woods. And we were on one of his claims camping for a little while there, and he was an amazing host. He really had great hospitality, really took care of us well.
Very expensive ice.
Yeah, very expensive ice. Yeah, he brought us supplies and stuff like that. He really went above and beyond. So thanks again, Chris. That was really, really nice. You know. And that's another thing I really like about this. I really get to meet a lot of really nice people. You know, we've had lots of good hospitality and stuff. It's fantastic.
Corey says he has an interesting location or two, but if we go for it, we'll be considered pirates.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
I want to be a pirate.
Well, I've got on a regular basis get offers to go places like Africa and help out with this, that, or the other. One was for Borneo. They haven't got their financing yet. And I'm not an experienced international traveler, especially to the third world. So before I take off, I'll have to do some thorough research on this. But there was one gentleman that was wanted to know if I was interested in working on some mines in Mali there. And when we looked it up on the State Department website, they said it's like a class 3 security risk or something. I forget what it was, but it was a high risk area. So look at our special recommendations. So you go to their special recommendations for class 3 risk areas. Number 1, make sure you have a current will. Number 2, make sure you have arranged for long-term care for your children. Number 3, make sure you have a designated hostage negotiator. And I'm like, I don't really think I want to go there,
Yeah, Ricky C says you'll need bodyguards.
It would depend on where you're going. I don't want to go to a place where bodyguards are really, this thing you need to have. Because I'm not knowledgeable about those kind of risk environments, which means I can't even tell if the bodyguards know what the hell they're doing. And I have plenty of things to do with my life that are not so insanely risky. I don't have a huge aversion to going to a third world hellhole, as long as it's not a risky third world hellhole, So we shall see. But yeah, there's a good chance of some international travel in the not too distant future. We'll just see what comes together and this, that, and the other. And I know a couple of things. First of all, make sure you've got your round trip tickets. Number 2, make sure you have medical insurance that covers evacuation and stuff like that. So if you get hurt or sick there, they'll send a plane to pick you up and haul you back to decent medical facilities and stuff. So that would all have to be provided, along with enough information. I had a good idea that the people I was working with knew what the hell they were doing. But yeah. Let's see what we got. Yep, a G-Perb is a good idea too. I don't know about an armed team in a helicopter. That would be nice, but I know that is something that maybe people, some of you aren't familiar with. There's something called a G-Perb. GPIRB stands for Global Position Indicating Radio Beacon, and they're everything from, they mount them on ships with release holders. When the ship goes down, it senses the pressure and releases it, bobs to the surface and starts transmitting. You got them on aircraft that, if it hits the ground with more than 3 Gs, it starts transmitting. All the way down to little backpacker size things that I believe are a couple $100 nowadays. But what these things do is, when activated, they use the GPS to locate where the heck they're at. Then they send a distress signal, and there's a constellation of satellites orbiting, so that they'll pick up this distress signal, and they send the message to a headquarters that says, this unit is calling for help from this location. And when you buy one of these, you should register it. It says, okay, I am the owner of this unit. This is my contact information. This is my emergency contact, etc. So that within minutes of you calling for help, they've called your emergency contact, says, we got a distress signal from this person. And they're like, yep, he's up that area, and blah, blah, blah. There is one thing, I knew a guy that was in search and rescue, and he said there are certain locations where if we get a signal, we don't send a response immediately. like Ryan Airfield here by Tucson. If those coordinates come in, they're like, they call the airfield. Did somebody just make a hard landing there? Yeah, okay, tell them to turn off their G-perp. Yes, little one.
Well, Fed Group says, what's your opinion on gold rush areas where the source lode was never found?
In general, gold is where it's been found in the past. There's an old saying, if you want to go hunt elephants, go where elephants have been found in the past. If they haven't found the source lode, do some research. See how much effort has been put into finding the mother lodes in those areas. And if it hasn't been thoroughly investigated, might be a good place to look. You also have a situation like in, the rainier parts of the Northwest, where getting to bedrock can be a real challenge. It's buried under, earth and trees and brush and grass and, so you can't find the bedrock to look at it. Out, in Arizona here, it's usually pretty easy. But you can have landslides. You can have fires. You can have situations like that which temporarily create the ability to observe stuff that you couldn't see before. And especially with these new little hand-operated drones and stuff, that might be very useful. Another possibility, if you were trying to find an old mine in an overgrown area, but there's a good chance the portal is still open or the shaft is still open, I would think infrared, FLIR vision device of some sort. And on a cold winter night, you should be seeing a plume of warm air rising. On a hot summer day, you should see a cold spot there that's colder than it should be. And so you might be able to locate things like that using that kind of technology where in the past, it's just been lost. So those are some ideas in terms of how you might be able to find stuff that either hasn't been found or has been lost. And even if there's no record of a mine being lost, doesn't mean it's not there and somebody just kept it quiet. I mean, Lost Dutchman's gold mine has never been found. Yes, little one.
Adam Anderson asks, how many mining districts do you think have created detailed cross-section maps written down of the mines?
I have no idea what the number is, but I have seen a lot of reports. And it's rarely done so much by district as it is by company. You will have a company looking to go in and buy, a mine in a district, and they'll send a field person out there to look at the district. Say, okay, we buy this mine. What other opportunities might be there and stuff? And they'll do a pretty thorough investigation for a quick overview. But the districts themselves are more like a city. It's a legal district. It gives them certain rights and things. They usually don't cooperate in terms of exploration because they're all competitors. All of these mines are competing with each other. They're not in a highly cooperative arrangement in most cases.
Chris points out that a few of the highest interest mining districts had USGS reports in extensive detail.
Yes, and that's USGS.
And Altman says, can you give an overview of international mining? Can you own claims, keep the gold, etc.?
I can't give you a good overview, except I can tell you that each country is different. For example, when I was in Mexico years ago prospecting, first of all, you couldn't own a mine. You couldn't own property. You could lease. That would be it. But also, you couldn't ship gold out of the country. You're not allowed to transport gold out of the country. You have to turn it into cash. But if you don't refine it from your concentrates, you can ship the concentrates out of the country and then refine the gold once it gets somewhere else. So you need to go to each individual country you're potentially interested in, find somebody who's familiar with the local mining laws, because there's no necessary correlation at all from one country to another. It's all very, very individual, more so than states in the United States. And even there's a big difference between trying to mine in California and Nevada, for example. The laws are really radically different. So you'd have to see the jurisdiction and investigate the laws in that jurisdiction. You can't just do a general thing. But as with anything, make sure you do your due diligence, because you don't want to find out there's a law that you don't know about that gets you in big, big trouble. Go ahead, little one.
Winging It Tracy says, been all over baby Nevada. Lots of mines, found nothing but a new way to break my Jeep.
Yeah, most mines probably shut down because they run out of ore, or they ran out of money and never really had any good ore. Some mines shut down, like in Mexico. A lot of mines shut down in 1911 because there was a revolution. They chased all the Americans out. San Francisco mine near Magdalena, the mine near El Boludo, I don't know what the name of that was. La Cienega area, there was mining going on there. All those things just shut down in 1911, and as of the 1980s still had not restarted because it's capital intensive and nobody has the money. But in the United States, they could have been shut down in the 1940s due to the presidential order that shut down all non-essential mining. If you've got the records that tell you when and why the mine was shut down, that could be extremely helpful in trying to ascertain whether there's a good chance of there being, good ore just waiting to be mined. It's hard to tell. I've also seen some old mines that were turned into tourist attractions. The Copper Queen down in Bisbee. I forget what the name of that mine was. It's up south of Vegas on the Colorado River there, west of Lake Mojave. And it was a pretty good sized mine in its day. And they take tourists into there, and that's all they do with it. Yes, little one.
Adam says U.S. laws overall seem to strongly discourage new large-scale mining. I see lots of micro miners, but you don't see many new mines being developed.
And the reason is environmental regulations. Whenever you get a big mine, it draws the attention of the environmentalists. And they will spare no expense in terms of your tax dollars, because that's how they make their money, by suing the mining companies. Believe it or not, the law actually pays their lawyers to sue a private company. And so they make money by getting in the way of progress. That's how they make their paycheck. So, yeah, we have a mine here in Tucson, the Rosemont Copper Project. I think they got their final permits 10 years ago. Still not operating, still being sued. Every lawsuit they knock down, somebody just files another one. It's ridiculous. Yes, little one.
Ricky C. said he watched you a week or so ago. You were in Montana. How did Mine B turn out? Want to give him an update?
Okay. Prospect B, we have not identified a major ore body that is unexploited. We have found some decent grade zones. The zones tend to be towards in the middle of the current workings, which means ground control would be a problem. Extracting more rock. We're close to surface, so it wouldn't be an insurmountable problem. And the challenge there appears to be not so much the mining end, although, again, we still haven't identified a good ore body, but the extraction. because gravity extraction has proven to be not terribly efficient. The gold is very, very floaty, and it is proving rather recalcitrant. So the exploration is shut down for the season. It's starting to get cold and snowy up there. And this winter in Tucson, I'll be spending all my efforts on trying to develop the technology to extract the gold from that ore up there. All the ores up in the Helena area seem to be very fine gold. So, I mean, I need that tool in my toolbox. So I'm working on that tool. Aside from that, that's about it at this point. We're still waiting on some test results to finish crossing some T's and dotting some I's in terms of figuring things out as to what to do for next year. Yes, little one.
Chris Saucier comments that a Canadian mining company owns the rights to the richest ore body in Alaska. I forgot the name of the project, but they've been fighting a salmon habitat battle for years now.
I think that's the Pebble Mine.
And Wingy Tracy says that the mine you're thinking of in Nevada might be at Searchlight.
The mine I'm thinking of?
The tourist attraction.
No. Oh, wait a minute. Searchlight? No, it's not at Searchlight. It's just north of there and closer to the river. Yeah, at Searchlight there's some, and they might have opened one of those up. I was unaware of it. This other place is kind of off the beaten path a little bit. There is paved road to it, but it is not at Searchlight. It's probably highway 40, 50 miles away from there. Yes, little one.
Hardcore says, I bought some 25 pounds of gold ore quartz rock online, but ran a pinpointer over the rocks and didn't get a peep. Can the ore still have gold in it, but be too small to set off the pinpointer?
Absolutely.
And Corey asks, Mr. Bowen, did you have anything about the freeform mapping of a mine or tunnel you could go over again?
Well, a little clarification on the freeform mining or exploration. If you could put a comment exactly what you mean by that, and I'll answer the other guy's question while you do. Metal detectors, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert, can not only not detect beyond a certain smallness, but once you get small, I mean, you could have a large quantity of gold and a bunch of small particles, and it's not going to set it off. It's very annoying. And of course, since the gold in rock is almost all small particles, it's actually unusual to have anything big enough to set off a metal detector. Probably the most sensitive metal detector I know of is the Falcon 2. It's very small. It works more like a pinpointer. But when I was up there with Chris, and I got that little picker out of the creek there on his claims, it wouldn't set off the pinpointer. And I mean, I'm holding it in my fingers. It's a picker. Won't set it off. So yeah, a pinpointer is of limited utility for hard rock gold. And even for placer gold, it's not designed to find really small particles. It's designed to locate things like rings, coins, etc. quickly. But it's not super sensitive. I hope I'm both correct and helpful on that one there. That's why crush rock and pan it. Because
Hardcore says, okay, my hope is still up then. Tell him to crush it and pan it.
yes, absolutely. Crush it and pan it. Yeah, metal detectors. I mean, I've gone through gold mines with metal detectors on the walls, found nothing. And yet I know there's gold there. So, yeah.
Why don't you go back to Corey's question now and ask him what he specifically wants to know about freeform?
Yeah, I think Corey is more asking about, a hand survey where you're not using precision instruments or something like that. And there's a principle of geometry called similar triangles and similar geometric figures. And that's why we can have maps that are drawn to scale. If you have a square, then and this side's X. If it's a square, then all the sides are X. And if I say that house lot is a square, all you got to do is know how long one of the sides are. Everything else is already figured out. You can draw a perfect picture of it by simply drawing a square. You get a scale picture of it by making the units of the drawing correlate with the units on the ground. For example, if it's a 50-foot square and you use 50 millimeters, then 1 millimeter equals 1 foot. Now, when we were up in Montana, we had several situations where we had, well, for example, we had a tunnel that made some minor changes like this. And there's the side of the hill. Now, we set up points where we could see from one point to the next. Obviously, you can't see from this point to that point, so you have to have an intermediate point. And then all you do is, we use a stack of buckets, but anything that gets it roughly level will fine. I use this clipboard here, actually. And I can set it on the buckets and sight this way, lay it on the buckets, sight to that back point, then without moving it, turn and look this way to the other point and draw that line there, basically. I put a point in there. That gives me my distance and my angle. And then by using a tape measure and an appropriate scale change, I forget what it was, that we were doing. It's like 2 inches to 100 feet or whatever it was. Okay. Then you just literally draw it. And this is how the Romans and stuff use it. There's an instrument called an alidade that's specifically designed to be used on something called a plane table. Plane table is just that. It's a table that you can set on a tripod and get it very precisely level, and it will stay there. So it's a level plane. Then the alidade it's like a ruler, and it measures vertical angles, and it does these things so you can actually map the area with your naked eye and a couple instruments and get a pretty good job. Have you ever wondered how can they tell how high a mountain was in the old days? I mean, nowadays you can do it by, GPS and everything else, satellite radar. But back in the 1800s, how do they know how high Pikes Peak was? Especially when they hadn't climbed it, and actually shot levels. By shooting a level, I mean, some guy stands there with a pole and somebody else shoots a horizontal level and says, okay, my line of sight on that pole says 18 feet. So this spot is 18 feet above that spot. Write it down. Okay, you stand here. I'll go up the hill some more. That's how they used to do it. But in the case of like Pikes Peak, you have, let's say this is the ground and here's the mountain in the distance. Okay. Now you pick a spot here and you shoot an angle there, and it's a horizontal angle and a vertical angle. And here's another point. So you shoot, this is your baseline between the 2 points, and then you shoot another sight up to here. Now, each one of those is so far turned horizontally away from the baseline and so much above vertical. Now, by using trigonometry, which you youngsters probably never even heard of, you can, if you know the distance of this baseline and you know those angles, you can calculate everything else. You can calculate its horizontal distance and direction, and you can calculate its vertical distance. And then knowing the elevations of these points, you can tell its elevation. So that's how they used to do it. It was very time consuming. Back in the old days, they had a lot of people, survey crews, surveying in. It's what they called the cadastral survey, township, section, and range that we used. Well, all those section corners, somebody had to put them there. And so they had survey crews putting them in. Now, you will notice that the section corners are not at the corners of nice even rectangles all the time. There's 2 reasons for this. First of all, the Earth is a sphere. You can't tile the surface of the Earth perfectly with rectangles. You have to make adjustments. So that's where you'll change things. And also sometimes they just screwed up. They might be up to 30 feet off. Okay. So you have that. But have you ever been like going down a road in the city and all of a sudden it just makes a little jog? And you're like, why did the road jog there? I mean, it just shifted over 40 feet or something like that. Well, that's probably because those were the section lines and the road was going along the section lines. And either it's an adjustment made for latitude or longitude, you know, that isn't fitting the survey perfectly.
Baseline Road in Phoenix.
Yeah, Baseline Road. There's a reason they call it Baseline Road in up by Bellingham, Washington. It's Guide Meridian, you know, and these are basically the baselines. You know, this is where they laid it out. Okay, and I say you will see in some cases the road will just jog for no real reason. That's why the Earth's surface is not a flat plane. I don't think I have any flat earthers out there watching me, but if there are, I have to tell you, surveyors have to take into account the curvature of the Earth to get accurate levels in distances as little as a mile. I think you're already off a foot or two if you don't take that into account. So it is a significant issue on intermediate scale surveying. You don't have to be surveying an entire state. You can just be surveying in a city, and you have to take into account the curvature of the Earth. You know, obviously when it comes to house lots, not so much. Now, little one, I think I'm going to need to take a couple minutes break real quick. Could you come over here so people can see your pretty face and just yak at them or whatever there?
Okay, they'll probably hate me, but I'm coming over.
Be right back, folks.
Warning, people, may damage sensitive camera equipment with the pretty face. Okay. Anyway, let's see. Hi, Chris. Yeah, Adam, pay attention to Chris. You don't want to snatch and grab on the crystalline gold because it does lead to lead poisoning. That stuff is very, very valuable. Speaking of crystals, this is one of Bear's other talents. He designed and made this for me. It is labradorite and sterling silver. Hi, Corey. I'm going to be drinking a protein shake. These actually aren't bad.
Thanks, hardcore. At my age, I'll take any compliments I can get, people, okay? My bear is better looking than I am.
Not to me.
Well, hey, that's your fault. You have bad taste. Okay, Pixel Daddy's back.
Oh, okay, so where are we?
Corey says gemstones are another thing he's learning about.
Corey, where do you live in general? Are you anywhere near Tucson? Because we have an amazing show that comes here every year that's just hard to believe. Um, we have the Tucson Rock and Gem Show, which just has an amazing amount of specimens and cutting stones and jewelry and just everything.
They like the necklace you made me.
Oh, that's what the very nice was. I thought they were commenting on my wife. Okay, it was just the necklace then. All right.
No, they're commenting on your gorgeous necklace.
Well, I just took pieces apart and put them back together again differently. Yeah. Labradorite is beautiful, and there's a company, they make labradorite countertops. Now you can't get a full-size countertop in one piece of labradorite and get the flash. So they take pieces of labradorite and cut and polish them and stuff, and then set them in a form, and then they cast it with like an epoxy resin or something. It's really, really pretty stuff. But I think it was like $100 a square foot.
Hardcore wants to know, can black light help find gemstones? Some in here.
I presume some of them will fluoresce. I am not familiar.
Probably fluorite.
But I bet you if you Googled gemstones that fluoresce, I know diamonds fluoresce to some extent, but I'm not sure exactly what frequency they fluoresce to. I bet you Chris does. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, Chris knows a lot of stuff.
Chris is amazing.
Yeah, I've got to get a mineral light sometime. You know, if I just won the lottery, life would be so much simpler in so many ways.
Chris says for gems you want a light with short wave, medium wave, and long wave UV.
Yeah, I know. And they make them now. I mean, they've got some really nice stuff. It's a lot lighter than it used to be. It has multiple wavelengths and stuff. It's nice. No, I haven't done any centrifuge testing yet. I've been a bit busy just making some mods on the gravity concentrator and the impact mill. With any luck, I'll be doing some centrifuge type testing in the next 2 to 4 weeks. I've also got another idea, and I'm going to be testing that too. And yeah, the gem show is pretty jaw-dropping, and that's the thing, is it's not just one show either. I mean, you got the convention center, you've got Tucson Electric Park, you've got 50 different hotels. It's just insane. Favorite specimen you have found or bought? I can't think of a particular specimen that I've found or bought that was good. I've seen some amazing specimens. Typically, the ones that I really like are way too expensive for me to buy. This is what, calcite?
No, that's quartz.
Okay.
Complete with angels.
This is a quartz sphere that Eva has.
This. Calvin.
Oh, and this is a calcite sphere.
Calvin weighs about 10 pounds.
Yeah. Now I have, at the Gem and Mineral Show here, you see stuff, 8-foot tall quartz crystals, amethyst, geodes, bigger than me.
Seraphinite.
Here's some seraphinite. Eva likes that stuff. I can't,
Crystal Garden.
I can't resist. The Earth is an oblate triaxial obloid. That could be true. I know it's not a perfect sphere. Let's see. No, I have not tried any leaching on the float gold yet. I'm sure it would work. However, in Montana, for example, cyanide is really difficult to permit. So, yeah, not going to happen in Montana. You'd have to haul it somewhere else. And if you're going to haul it somewhere else, it's always better if you can concentrate it. Saves a lot on the shipping. So that's why I'm focusing on the concentrating first to see if I can make that work. Yes, black lights work well for scorpions. I used to hunt scorpions when I was younger. I've been stung by scorpions. The big desert hairy scorpions, while they're not terribly dangerous, it is a neurotoxin. And my lips started tingling, so we thought we'd probably get out of the desert and over by the hospital just in case. And then the most horrible, horrible symptom manifested. The soles of my feet started itching horrendously. It was awful. But that was the worst thing that happened from the scorpion sting. Let's see. Yeah, Eva loves crystals too. Absolutely. Cyanide in aquatic environments are a bad mix. Yeah, you have to be careful. So to split the light 3 ways, I imagine the 3-wave ultraviolet, it either uses filters or they actually have, nowadays, who knows, it could be 3 different LEDs that emit at different wavelengths. Not sure.
Chris says they use vapor lamps usually.
I'm not sure. Itchy feet are the worst. Yeah, it was horrible. Absolutely. LEDs don't work yet? Okay. I believe you, Chris. You know your stuff.
Stephen B's got a cool one. A calcite chalcopyrite specimen.
Yeah, the pyrite will replace the organics in some cases if the environment's just right. And yeah, you have pyrite ammonites and stuff. They're beautiful. Absolutely. I have seen some just amazing stuff at the Gem Show.
We've seen crystal spheres taller than me.
Yeah. They have some beautiful stuff. And I mean, even little stuff like this amethyst here. I don't know. Do you remember what this amethyst here cost? Like $5 or something,
like
maybe?
$6.
Yeah. Say it's just cheap as can be during the Gem Show. Got a labradorite sphere anywhere?
Yes.
Why don't you get that? People are interested in some of the. Oh, there's that bowl too. That's a labradorite bowl, isn't it?
This is my. No, this one is actually jadeite, and
Oh,
that's the jadeite and silver.
okay. This bowl is jadeite. There's some labradorite. Yeah, that shows pretty well in the lighting.
And this is a
that
really
flash is just so beautifully blue. It's not showing up too well on the camera, but it's gorgeous.
and that is a very bad piece of fluorite. That was a scrap.
Oh, and here's just
that
a
somebody gave me.
chunk of fluorite that she got for free.
Now this is a piece of seraphinite that shows the rough side and the polished side.
Now this is seraphinite here, and that's the polished side. Here's the rough side.
And here's a smoky quartz terminal.
Yeah. Smoky quartz specimen here. How much was this?
That was like $11.
$11. You know, I say the prices, you can't beat them. It's amazing.
And I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but this is the piece that's got the ruby in matrix right there. That's the piece that you bought. It's got the ruby.
Ruby in matrix. Poor grade ruby. Pretty heavy matrix too, whatever it is. Well, it just doesn't show up well on the camera. It's a lot prettier in
And this is a selenite sphere. Selenite normally comes in towers.
there's selenite. I believe this is an evaporite of some sort, like gypsum, something like that.
It normally comes in towers. It looks like little skyscrapers.
But yeah, there's everything from carvings, loads of fossils, ammonites,
Another piece,
everything.
another piece of labradorite with some beautiful flash.
See how this labradorite shows up. You know, the labradorite is the one thing that shows up reasonably well on the camera here. Don't know why.
Now this is a nice jasper egg.
This is jasper. Oh yeah, we are loaded with minerals. You betcha. Say we've been going to the gem show for decades, and yeah, Eva loves crystals and rocks and stuff, and so we pick up this here and there. Hey Joachim, how's it going? Thank you very much for all the help with
Now,
the
I do not remember
electronics.
what that is. Ask Chris, maybe he knows.
Oh, I bet you he does. I think this is probably artificial. Hey, Chris. Any idea what that is? It's crystalline. It's light. Something more like bismuth or something like that. I'm not sure. But there's the reverse side where it's not. That's what I say. I'm pretty sure this is artificially grown. Not sure. Do you have any muscovite? Not in any
Not yet.
substantial size. No. I just
Corey
assaulted
says,
by.
thank you for showing us some stuff while you're live streaming. This is the best chat I've had in a very long time.
It's not galena because it's much lighter than that. I mean, this is, I'd say the specific gravity is no more than about 2.5.
Well, I wouldn't have bought a fake stone bear. That's why I asked you what it was.
Yeah, it's. So this is more like beryllium, you know, an industrial crystal. And
Dark gray internal with silvery surface reflection, perhaps?
It looks pretty silvery on the fractured surfaces too. Wherever it's cut, fractured, or anything, it's all silvery. And I say specific gravity, I'm guessing about 2.
Maybe it's a chunk of
Silicon? I don't know. Is pure silicon a silvery color? Because that might very well be it. Pure silicon. It's just polycrystalline instead of monocrystalline. Yeah.
like a chunk of wafer.
Yeah, basically the raw material. Yeah, I'm thinking you might be right, Chris. Silicon. You know,
I think Chris would know.
I say this is not a wafer in terms of this is polycrystalline. You know, not like a because they grow the big monocrystalline cylinders and then they cut the wafers. But this looks it's really, I mean, there's voids in here, so I'm thinking this is more like the raw material that's pure, but they haven't really gone to the point where they're fusing it and turning it into a single crystal yet. That's my guess. But yeah, I bet you that's what it is, silicon. That would make perfect sense.
Chris Letty says, very cool. I've worked in semiconductors. Interesting.
Yeah, so I bet you that's what that is. Oh, I don't know if there's anything else really cool around here. I wonder. Now that's a good question. Do you folks, would you like me to do a video just on the Rock and Gem show?
Well, here's a piece of tumbled pyrite.
Tumbled pyrite here. Because I actually have a video that I could switch over.
And here's a tumbled hematite.
I made it for a friend of mine, well, internet acquaintance basically, who had gotten an accident, was injured, and couldn't really do anything, was getting bored out of his mind. And so I just literally walked from my house over here to the hotels and just started walking through the Rock and Gem show.
There's a piece of natural pyrite.
And here's some more pyrite here. Just that cut or no? That's crystalline. It's not cut. So if you guys would like me to do that, I'll go ahead and switch that over there. I wonder if I can switch it over. Do you know if can I just readdress something I've already loaded to YouTube? Because if I could, that'd be great. If not, I may have lost the raw footage from that because I had a hard drive crash.
Ray says, I don't think so, but my suggestion there is when the gem show comes up, we do several videos on it because there's always
it's on my personal
there
channel,
too.
Chris, and that's why I say I think if I could just essentially switch the address on it, like your copy and paste sort of thing. Hi, Cherokee, and I think that I'm being harassed by a Mexican over there. Get out of here, Tom.
Be sure to tell
he's a
people
character.
you're joking.
Let's see. Yes, if you have the original. No, I see. That's it. I think I may have lost the original due to a hard drive crash.
Ask them if they'd be interested. We can go to the gem show when it comes into town, and
I'll try and go to the gem show this year and make some video on that. And also, if they ever reopen the Mission Mind tours, I'll go ahead and take that tour and put that up too. Again, it's lost in limbo, so to speak. Yeah, if you find out, Chris, let me know. If not, I'll just it's only a couple months. I'll make some videos anyhow. Yeah, the Gem Show, it is amazing. Prospector Trip's going to, planning to come down here in January to see it personally. That'd be a great thing. Would be, video while he and I go look at some stuff and everything.
Chris Georgie points out you could try streaming from next year's Gem Show.
I'm not sure how I can do that. We'd have to do it off of Eva's smartphone. So we'd have to figure out how to do that. And we shall see. Yeah, I went to the, what's the name of that place? One of the biggest copper mines in the world. Morenci. We do a fair over there usually. We aren't going to be there this year because of COVID. They've shut it down. But it was a really windy day up there that day, so the audio really sucked. But it's an amazing mine. I may have that video, the raw stuff, on my backup hard drive. I can make that there. Okay, Joachim says we can get that set up. He's my electronics guru over here. He's the one who put this computer together for me.
Corey says that if we go to the Gem Show, he'd like to see mining rough, like chalcopyrites and such, and they will have good specimens there so that people can get a really good idea of what it looks like.
They have some gold and matrix. There's some, usually not much.
Depends on which show. I know one with lots.
Yeah, but so there's some amazing stuff. I will agree. Yeah, the idea of a live stream, it's got possibilities. We'll have to try that out with Eva's smartphone and see if we can make that work, because that would be pretty cool. If you've never seen it, it's really mind-blowing. I mean, the first time I ever saw the Rock and Mineral Show, I'm like, holy crap. This is better than a museum. There's more stuff than 10 museums. And that's just one location. And yeah, I know some pretty good locations. Tucson Electric Park, hell, just across the street here. Might have to break up the live stream a little bit, but that's okay. Because we could do this around here. That's a couple hours. And then take a break and then go over to Tucson Electric Park, Holodome. I was like, you have no idea. If you were to just walk all the booths and all the shows in Tucson, you would probably walk 100 miles. I would not be surprised. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but it would be a lot. Because when you go down an aisle, then you got to turn around and come back the other way, and like that, it's ridiculous. Yeah, well, where you live, Chris, yeah, gold and matrix makes perfect sense. Not much of it gets down here.
I know several vendors at TEP that sell it.
Yeah. Make sure to check about filming in public. Yeah. Not sure. Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Will the minor Rego be ready by then? I presume you mean by the Gem Show. It doesn't matter. It's right here. And hopefully, yes. It all depends on what's wrong with the Bago. The engine started making a knocking sound. And we have not identified it yet. One of my viewers, Jim, is going to be here in about another week. He's a real good mechanic, and we're going to go through it and see if we can figure out what's going on. Right now, we suspect a piston. May have lost a ringland or something like that. And we'll figure it out. Once we figure it out, then we'll know what it'll take to fix it. Probably it's just mainly labor, not much in the way of parts, but we'll see. But yeah, I should have it fixed by November. That's the plan. Okay, that was you, yeah. Well, the reason I don't want to post the link is that my private channel also has some other stuff which is kind of confidential, so it'd be better to just port it over to this if possible. No, the pistons all seem to be floating up and down. The number 8 cylinder, when I pulled the rod cap, I could push the rod up with my finger, and then as I came back down, it would follow back down. So there's like no ring tension on that piston in the cylinder bore. I mean, it's floating free.
Cherokee is asking a question also. Is it
So-
rattling?
Oh, it's not rattling, it's banging. Bang, 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 sort of thing. Yeah, I checked to make sure like a bolt wasn't coming loose on the torque converter or something and hitting the housing, because that's exactly what it sounds like. I checked the vibration damper to see if it was hitting something, because it sounds exactly like a piece of rotating something hitting something. But I haven't been able to identify it yet. Jim's pretty smart. He figured out where that vibration was coming into my drive line. So I've got confidence that we have we'll be able to make it work. I say I'm not sure we need right now. I've got a 400 in there. It's only got a couple years on it since the rebuild, and if we can get it running again without too much trouble, 400 is pretty powerful. If not, I may go to a 350. I don't know. We shall see. A 350 would run cooler, that's for sure. I don't think the crank is messed up. So far, the plan is at this point, I believe, is to pull each of the rod caps individually, inspect the bearings, check the cylinder, the travel through the cylinder, examine the cylinders. We may have to pull the heads to get a better visualization. I don't know. There was some granular sort of stuff. Well, here, let me get it. Golly gee. Let's see. Okay, it's having trouble focusing, but that is granular non-magnetic material from the crankcase. So I'm not sure what it is, but it's a fair amount. I mean, what is that? Half a tablespoon to a tablespoon? So that's a fair amount of metal floating around in there. Not sure where it came from, but we'll get it figured out. And then the Suburban, I think we got all the leaks pretty well under control now, except for the burning oil past the rings on number 8 and number 6 cylinder. But just keep adding oil and changing plugs. Problem is the carburetor needs to be rebuilt. It's leaking into the intake manifold, and so that can make it really hard to start after about 30 minutes. Next morning, no problem. Looks like cadmium. Could be. I don't know.
Rick Joblin says, afraid of whiskey, an arm of tacos, and a willingness to succeed. The miner Bago's gotta live.
Bago's matter, yeah. They say we'll get it fixed one way or another. I think there's points to be made. I mean, one of the problems with the 400 small block, I guess they tend to run hot. because to make the modifications, it just doesn't cool as easily. I mean, it's basically the same block. It's been stroked and bored, but it's the heads, I think, that just don't get as much cooling. So since I've had heating problems, it might be better to go to a 350. I'm really not sure. That cylinder's where the metal is coming from? Could be. You said bug, not bugs. Little one. It's yeah, it could be doing bad things to the cylinder. Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna have to pull the heads too, but I don't know. But we'll just have to see. I mean, you know, engines can be replaced, so say it can be fixed, but we didn't have the time or money to deal with it before we headed up to Montana. And I have a really sharp mechanic going to be here in a week or so. Once he gets here and we can take a look at it, and I get someone with some good eyes on it, we'll figure out what the problem is.
Chris says if you replace it, go with an inline 6 if you can find one.
We need a lot of power for that thing. I mean, climbing grades and stuff like that, even that 400. Getting to your place sucked going over Donner Pass. So,
Chris
yeah.
said a Cummins would be nice.
Yes, it would. And if you've got the money and want to do it, you're welcome to do so. But what is that, about 20 grand? Yes. A newer truck. My brother is like, what you need is a diesel with the Allison train. I said, yeah, you got the money?
Cherokee says it's 6K new.
6K for what? A Cummins diesel? And that doesn't count all the modifications to get it slapped in there. Siamese cylinder, no water goes between them. They have steam ports in the heads. I say, I don't know. When Jim gets here, we'll worry about all that stuff. I agree. I mean, they make a lot tougher engines than that. Gosh, some of these new diesels are just amazing. I mean, you get the power in a pickup truck that you used to have in a semi truck, and so they can just do real well. And in terms of a 350 small block, yeah, I mean, those are easy to get. So I'm not sure about the 400 versus 350 trade-off. Just don't know. Yeah, I say a 350 would certainly work. It had a 350 in it for years. I was going to replace it with a 350, and then when the mechanic I had at the time was looking for a block, basically just an old engine to rebuild, found a guy that was, selling two. One was a 400 and one was a 350, and I think it was like $300 for both of them. And he says, so I'm going to buy both, and whichever one you don't want, I'll sell, and I'll make my money back for that. You want the 400 or the 350? And I checked around, and the 400 does have more power. And it's got an RV cam in it and stuff like that. So we'll see. No, it's not a thrown rod. I've got the crankcase off. I can see all the rods. I can see all the piston skirts. It's not a thrown rod. It's not a broken piston skirt. I can tell that just by seeing. Aside from that, I'm not sure. It doesn't look like any of the studs broke or anything like you had a stud on on a connecting rod break or anything like that. But aside from that, I can't tell right now. Yeah, it's not a thrown rod, I can tell you that. And I agree. That'll usually get the mechanical marine injection setup. Not sure what you mean by that, Chris. Small block Chevy 383 stroker, huh? Yep. As I say, I'm not sure. I'm not a real good mechanic. I know the basics, but you need to know more than the basics to make, figure trade-offs and stuff like that there. So I say we shall see what we shall see. Not worried about it right now. I'm busy. Both I got construction work to do and kettle corn and milling equipment stuff. Plus a couple of guys are looking to have me examine some specimens and
Rick
such.
Jobling says, I hope we get a little show on the motor repair.
Sure, why not? Navistar 6.5 turbo diesel used in Hummers. Is that the one that doesn't last very long? I don't know. Again, you start making changes, and sometimes it gets pretty complicated to make it work out right. I know Randy decided, my brother, he had to, I think his transmission burned up or the engine, but yeah, he wanted to go from a turbo 350 to a turbo 400, and for the tranny. Bolts right in, right? Well, no, you got to shorten the drive shaft because it's got a longer tailpiece on the tranny. But then that changes the angle of the drive shaft into the differential. So you got to rotate the differential. And if you don't know that, you're going to be burning up U-joints every 5,000 miles. So again, you have to have someone who really knows what they're doing to make those kind of judgment calls.
Adam asks, do you dig test holes to find quartz ever in the field?
In terms of quartz veins or quartz crystals, in terms of veins, sometimes you'll be trenching, not so much holes as trench. If you have an idea that there's a vein running through there, then you would generally cut a trench at 90 degrees to the expected strike to see if you can intercept it.
Cherokee has an essay question about the flower gold when you get a chance, or if you want, she can eat.
Go ahead. Lay it on me. Have you sent that sample off for assay yet, by the way, Cherokee? And the kickdown cable is different. Yeah, I say when you change things, there's so many little things sometimes that it just gets ridiculous. Because yeah, the new diesels with the big, Allison transmissions and stuff. Oh, that would be sweet. But man, so many things have to change. Yeah, if you got shallow soil, a trench is usually the easiest way to find a structure. No, Cherokee, when they do an assay, they wind up with a little bead, and they will usually keep the beads. But unless you got really rich material, there's not enough in the bead to really matter in terms of money. I mean, say you're paying $40 for an assay, so you're going to need almost a gram of gold. Now the beads are weighed in milligrams, thousandths of a gram. So no, it's insignificant financially in terms of the bead that's in the gold, in the thing, unless it's extraordinarily rich. Now, if you've got high grade concentrates and you're doing, I think it's called a scorification assay. Like I've got a little vial here that's probably got 3 or 4 grams or more, maybe let's say 10 grams of concentrates with a couple grams of gold in it. And Ryan will smelt that down. But if you were having an assayer do that, there's $100 worth of stuff there. But he's probably not going to want to try and accept that in lieu of his fee or anything like that. Though I suppose something like that, you could request that he send the bead back to you. There'd probably be a slight additional handling fee, but that should be about it. But that would be a very special kind of assay, not a normal assay. Let's see.
We're discussing post-gold diggers.
Yeah. Yep, Chris, if you got more than a couple milligrams, you got pretty rich. Yep. Yeah, I mean, even when we sent those samples up there this summer to have exactly that done, I think the total weight was something in the order of 50 milligrams, something to that. It wasn't much at all.
Corey asks, how flowery is Montana gold from the sapphire bars in Missouri River? I'm almost ready to pan out the tailings and not sure what to expect. I do expect it to be fine from being an alluvial deposit.
How flowery? Don't know. I'm not particularly familiar with that one. The stuff around Helena, it's beyond flowery. It is really powdery. However, because it's a placer deposit, it's going to be coarser than what I'm dealing with. The middle fork of the Boise River was really flaky. I mean, you'd pan down to black sand and you see gold on top of the black sands too. It was that flaky. So I'm not sure, but I would be very careful and use both panning techniques, like kind of a standard swirly reveal and also a tapping reveal, and see what you got. The tapping reveal does a good job on some things, and the swirly one does a good job on other things. So that's why.
Chris Georgie, what's an assay ton again? 31 point something IIRC.
I believe it was something like that in terms of grams, about 31 grams. Nowadays, they're just, depends. Different assayers give you different numbers. The big labs all do in parts per million now. So they don't even worry about assay tons. They're just using like a 15-gram sample. But I believe an assay ton was 31. Could you look that up real quick, little one? What's an assay ton? He's talking about the amount of rock that you put into the crucible, so that like
a short assay ton is 29 1/6 grams, while a long assay ton is 32 2/3 grams.
29 point something for a short assay ton and 32 point something for a long assay ton. Yeah, but basically that way each milligram equals what, 1 ounce per ton, Chris? I forget. Well, Eva's speaking loudly because she's about 20 feet from me, but we found out the microphone can actually hear her just fine. 1 milligram per ounce per ton. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I told her I'd rather be a street corner preacher than an anchor person, but oh well.
I'm glad I helped out, Corey. Ooh, will rose quartz possibly have gold? I haven't heard of rose quartz having gold, but I don't know why it couldn't, because it's not the quartz that actually has the gold usually. It's in the pyrites. And you can certainly have a vein that has one event that put in rose quartz and another vein right next to it in the same crack that put in gold, because they might have happened a million years apart for all you know. So you could have gold in a vein that also has rose quartz. I haven't heard too much about rose quartz being, mineralized, but I don't know.
Gold in a rose quartz matrix, ever.
A well-spoken street corner preacher, huh? Yeah, she's a hell of a wordsmith. She's a lot better than me with her words. I'm good technically.
Do you have any ideas about carbonatite there?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't recognize the term. Could you look it up, little one?
Yes, carbonatite is generally found in Antarctica, amongst other places. It's often mistaken for marble, may require geochemical verification. It's intrusive or extrusive igneous rock defined by a mineralogic composition of greater than 50% carbonate minerals. Pretty stuff.
Okay.
Occurs as small plugs within zoned alkalic intrusive complexes as dikes.
Okay, got it, little one. Let's see. Carbonatite with respect to gold. I don't know of any correlation or non-correlation. It's igneous, and volcanism goes with gold deposition, and certainly anything can host a vein. Something was there before and then gets cracked and gets mineralized. So there's nothing you can really eliminate except maybe unbroken granite, unbroken, unaltered granite,
What makes rose quartz rose?
Rose quartz is just trace minerals in it. I'm not sure exactly which ones make it rose quartz, but it's like amethyst.
Right now.
It's trace chemical impurities. Oh, if he was on a street corner, she would be converting people to whatever. I mean, when we were heading up to Alaska, I actually made her a little fold-up sign, a little chalkboard sign, so that she could put, the psychiatrist is in, like on Lucy or whatever, You want to discuss something, she can hold her own on almost any discussion, whether it's Roman battle tactics or whatever. She's got an amazing breadth of knowledge.
By the way, rose quartz is pink because it has inclusions of a pink variety of the mineral dumortierite.
Which is made of what?
I shall find out.
Well, the problem with finding a wrecked F-350 with a power stroke 7.3 is then converting it to the Turbo Hydro 350. There's got to be some kind of adapter there.
It's a fibrous, variably colored aluminum borosilicate material.
Aluminum borosilicate.
Al7,
Yep.
BO3, SiO4 3O3.
Yep. That's the color comes from different impurities. You got your rose quartz, you got amethyst, you got smoky quartz. They're all caused by different impurities. Just like rubies are red because of impurities. Not I believe that are rubies corundum. Not sure.
Yes, corundum is rubies.
I think they're corundum.
Carborundum.
Not carborundum. That's silicon carbide. Corundum, which is I think aluminum oxide. But I say, depending on how much thing, I mean, different colored diamonds, same things. It's trace impurities that cause the color. Peanut butter? No, honey. You got to have honey. Pyrite with muscovite in the rose quartz. Now, pyrite was definitely generally associated with gold, but if you have pretty specimens of something odd like pyrite with rose quartz, I mean, if they're nice crystals of both and everything, you may have a very valuable specimen grade stuff. Okay, you would need to talk to the specialists on that, but pretty crystals, especially when they're an unusual combination, can be extraordinarily valuable. I mean, depending on the size, the
Chris
quality,
points that
etc. Pardon?
Chris points that out.
Yeah. Yeah. If you got pretty crystals of rose quartz and pyrite with some muscovite, I would take some photographs of a couple specimens and find, a half a dozen people who deal with specimens like that and get some kind of ideas. Is this something unusual and is it valuable or not? I believe you can use borax laundry soap in place of anhydrous borax. You have to use a little bit more because the water is weight. And anhydrous borax doesn't have it. And so you can use less of the anhydrous compared to the hydrated borax.
Abdallah Momo has a comment.
Thanks,
He's working
Gory.
on carbonatite.
Yeah. Need some help about making some geochemistry analyses. Well, I'm not sure where you're at. If you're looking for multi-element analyses and such, there's a number of laboratories that do it for reasonable prices, in the neighborhood of $40 or $50 per sample for 30 to 50 elements analyzed. If you're looking at an elemental analysis, that's pretty easy to do. You got ALS, you got Skyline Labs. Any geochemical laboratory should be able to do that for you. What's your physical location and what do you have around you? Okay. Chris has a suggestion to contact James Hutchings about unusual mineral specimens. Okay. In Forest Hill, California. Okay.
Carson says he's got a Canon camcorder HD if you want it.
The one I've got isn't. It's got its issues right now. Is it a fairly compact unit, or is it like a big one, or what's the deal here? Because yeah, I could use a backup one. I presume it downloads to the internet and has chips and all. I mean, not to the internet, to my computer, has chip memory and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. One thing I could really use would be a good mineralogical microscope too. That and a mineral UV light would be nice. If anyone's got some of those collecting dust that they're never going to use again, that would be nice. Can you advise on gold-bearing talc? Never heard of it. It would certainly be easy to grind. Ground support might suck, though. I hear talc mines are really tough in terms of ground support, but I have no familiarity with it. It would be kind of an odd situation, but nature does some odd things. You can only use handed. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you can get an angle grinder, like a battery powered one with a diamond blade on it, a metal diamond blade. It'll cut some pretty good stuff. So that might. $200. Let me know how, and I'll buy you a $200 Sony, which is better. Well, Carson, my email is hardrocku@outlook.com. If you want to talk more completely and privately, go ahead and send me an email and we can chat it out. Well, Chris, what's your excuse for not having a microscope? I'm poor. The problem with the electronic microscopes, Cherokee, is the resolution just isn't the same. It's pixelated. Even at a small scale, it's not nearly as good as, an optical microscope. Yep.
Yeah, hardcore was knocking the crystal woo. Not acceptable.
Oh, dearie.
Carson wants to know, can diorites be dark colored?
Yeah, to some extent, but not horribly dark. I mean, the difference between a diorite, andesite, and basalt is the amount of ferromagnesians in there, and the diorites in the middle. So it'll tend to be a gray to a dark gray, but not a real dark color. And that's why if it's really dark color, then it'll be a basalt. Two mines which are 800 feet apart. One is free mill, the other is sulfides. Does this make sense? Absolutely. They could have occurred millions of years apart. Hard to tell. Also, you're in a very tectonically active region. Things get moved around a lot. So yes, but I would suspect they were two different events. And that's why one has had a lot more time to oxidize than the other. But that's just a guess with no data at this point, Lars. Yeah, Chris agrees, and Chris is pretty smart, so I'd go along with him. Well, I have to be up at 5 in the morning, folks. So we should probably start wrapping this up here. Rare earths. Ooh, carbon and oxygen isotope, strontium, rubidium. Those shouldn't be a problem. I live in New Jersey, but location of study is Morocco. There's laboratories. I think ALS Global is one that I've just been recently dealing with, and they have global on there for a reason. But there are laboratories or companies that will do these kinds of analyses that have a global reach. They're designed to do stuff like
DD
that.
has another question for you. Just a quick one.
DD?
Yeah.
Oh,
DD
Mr. Holcomb. Yeah, you can't chisel quartz. Not going to happen. You can cut it with a let's say a diamond wheel. You're going to wear out your diamond wheel pretty quick. If you're allowed to use a battery powered angle grinder, that might give you the open face you need. The other thing you might do is just go away from a bit where you can get something soft and then just start peeling it off. But yeah, that can be a bit of a pain. You could also use something like a Sierra Blaster or whatever, if that's legal, where you can get it underneath there and just drill a hole and pop, and then come next, pop a hole next to it, basically. But yeah. You're welcome, Cherokee, and everyone else. As you can see, I don't know everything, but there's a lot of people here, and that helps out too, because some of them, especially Chris, know a lot of stuff also. So the whole community here is a lot smarter than any of the individuals, especially yours truly. But it works out well. What I'm planning on doing in general is I'm going to try and have a live stream like one night a week. For now, I'm going to try and do it on Sunday evenings like this. And I'll try and post a video like on Saturday or whatever that'll let everyone know, yeah, I'm planning on having a live stream tomorrow, etc. I'll just put a little note on it. So give you guys a little bit of a heads up. Yeah, hydraulic expanding grout is also a good idea, Chris. It'd be a lot gentler on the specimens. Yeah. Forest Service, Mr. Holcomb, they're generally a pain in the ass. Okay. Now there's another thing you could try, which is feathers and wedges. If you can hand drill some holes with a star drill or something, especially if there's something soft, if it's like in a structure here and the wall rock next to it where you can get in there. Feathers and wedges are used to split rock. You drill a hole, then you put the feathers in, and then you drive the wedges in and tend to split. It's the drilling part that the Forest Service may be a bit of a pain with. They seem to think that anything that isn't completely and utterly powered by human muscles is a power tool, not a hand tool. So, yeah, you'd have to check on that. And I say, it can be a pain. It really can, the regulations. Technically, it's a piece of cake, but regulation-wise, it's a pain in the butt, And I say, it's just lots of time single jacking. Yep. Yep. Exactly. Okay, well, if you can drill, the other thing you can do is drill a bunch of holes in a tight pattern and then bust out the rock between them. And if you put 5 1-inch hole, or say the half-inch holes, in like a pattern like this, and then smash out the center. Now you've got a little bit of relief. Yeah. Yeah. If you can drill, you can also use an electric demolition hammer too. If you can, again, get some kind of face opened up. And if you can drill, you should be able to use a diamond blade. Because a diamond blade will cut almost anything, even if it wears out quickly. But once you've got a cut, now you've got relief. It doesn't have to be much relief, just some. And then you make another cut, and then you pop it into the other cut like that with a chisel. It should work. Oh, dearie. Got to eat something tonight. Let's see. Shouldn't be too much at this point because I got to be up at 5 to do a roofing job. Luckily, it's only about 100 degrees now, so not too bad. If you can drill 1/2 to 1 inch and a depth of 3 feet, then yeah, either feathers and wedges or expanding grout should work just fine. And I say if the bits don't wear out too fast, you can drill a series of holes tightly spaced to create a plane of weakness. So I'd start with that. But yeah, you can take some pictures of it in place and send those to the experts to say, is this something that's of exceptional value, or is it just, tourist stuff? If it's exceptional value, then it's worth your effort and some supplies.
Even tourist stuff can be worth the effort depending on how you market it.
Yep. Yep.
Go for the woo. Seriously, go for the woo.
Yeah. Oh. Well, I'm going to have to let y'all go as I'm starting to fade out here. I've been, last night I had to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning doing the kettle corn. Then I had to be up at 7 in the morning, and now I got to be up at 5 tomorrow morning. So I better get some rest. It's been great. We're going to try and do this at least once a week. And so I'm working on the extraction technologies and stuff. And yes, I know there's stuff out there that works, like leaching, but I'm still going to try and find something that works better for the micro scale, especially. For big guys, yeah, cyanide leaching it works if you're allowed to do it. So
yeah, we're working on equipment for people who aren't allowed to do it.
Yep. So anyhow, y'all, it's been great. Had a good time, and I got to get to bed now. So take care, keep it safe out there, and happy prospecting. Let's see, end stream. Yep. Okay.